The perfect corporate smile. It is not a symptom of human warmth. It is merely a calculated display, a flawless facade crafted for the boardroom. They wear charm like a tailored suit, hiding the absolute void underneath. Society demands leaders who project unwavering confidence. The system rewards those who lack the friction of human hesitation. Watch the apex predator enter the room. Every movement is meticulously designed, mirroring the exact expectations of their prey, an artificial soul. The board of directors sits in absolute darkness, desperately searching for a savior to rescue their plummeting profit margins. They do not see the hollow eyes. They only see the blinding charisma, the undeniable aura of a visionary conqueror. This is the chameleon charm at its absolute peak. The narcissist absorbs the room's energy, reflecting back only what they desire to see. Empathy is a biological hindrance in the pursuit of absolute power. The psychopath operates without this crippling emotional baggage. When a normal mind hesitates at the edge of a ruthless decision, the predator leaps forward without a single pulse spike. To them, employees are not breathing individuals with families. They are merely numbers on a sterile spreadsheet, waiting to be quietly and systematically erased. A necessary sacrifice. Is it bravery to take colossal risks with other people's livelihoods? Or is it simply a clinical absence of conscience? The psychopath feels no anxiety about the impending fallout. They drain the ecosystem, leaving nothing but a barren wasteland behind, smiling the entire time. We celebrate this ruthless grandiosity. We print their faces on the covers of glossy magazines, worshiping the very traits of a clinical disorder. The boardroom doors lock. The initiation is complete. The golden child of corporate capitalism has ascended to the highest throne. The board wanted a ruthless visionary. They crowned a monster. Let us examine the psychological blueprint of a modern corporate titan. The architecture of their mind is a fascinating paradox. Decades ago, psychologists created the psychopathy checklist to identify dangerous predators locked in maximum security prisons. But look closely at the criteria today. It no longer reads like a criminal profile. It reads like a job description for an executive. Trait number 1: glibness and superficial charm. The uncanny ability to enchant an entire room while feeling absolutely nothing inside. Trait number 2: a grandiose sense of self-worth. They do not just believe they are superior, they genuinely view themselves as untouchable gods. Trait 3: pathological lying.
Truth is
not a moral absolute. It is merely a malleable tool, weaponized to maximize profit. Trait 4: cunning and manipulativeness. Every relationship is strictly transactional. Every colleague is a disposable piece on a chessboard. And then, the most lucrative trait of them all: a clinical, chilling lack of remorse or guilt. A normal executive might lose sleep, tormented by the guilt of laying off 1,000 loyal workers. The corporate psychopath sleeps perfectly, viewing mass destruction not as a tragedy, but as a badge of honor on their resume. The terrifying truth is that the capitalist system does not merely tolerate these dark traits, it aggressively selects for them. We mistake their cold-blooded recklessness for bold, visionary leadership. We confuse their complete lack of empathy with operational efficiency. They do not rise to the top despite their psychological disorder. They ascend precisely because of it. The apex predator has secured the high ground, and now, the real hunt within the company begins. They do not build empires from the ground up. They simply drain the architects who do, taking all the glory. The parasitic manager is a master of absolute illusion. They construct nothing of value, yet they somehow stand at the very top of the pyramid. Watch how they operate in the shadows of the office. They hover over the exhausted creators, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, silent and lethal. When a brilliant idea is born on the floor, they do not nurture it. They simply snatch it from the original creator, claiming it as their own genius. In the brightly lit boardroom, the theft is finalized. They present the stolen work with absolute confidence, leaving the real architect completely erased. fading into the background. This is the art of cognitive plagiarism. They absorb the intellect of their subordinates, wearing their achievements like a tailor-made suit, perfectly fitted. But what happens when a project inevitably fails? The predator never takes the fall. They swiftly redirect the blame onto a disposable target, keeping their hands entirely clean. Accountability is a concept reserved only for the weak. They build an intricate labyrinth of scapegoats, ensuring the consequences never reach their sterile office. A perfect defense mechanism. The prey is left bewildered and completely broken. They poured their soul into the company, only to be sacrificed on the altar of a narcissist, discarded without a second thought. Do they feel guilt for stealing a career? The concept is entirely alien to them. They view the labor of others as their inherent right, an endless buffet of resources. They are not leaders guiding a team to victory. They are psychological vampires in tailored suits, draining the lifeblood of the organization, one promotion at a time. Human capital is merely a battery to be consumed. When an employee is completely depleted, they are unplugged and thrown into the dark void, easily replaced by the next victim. The organization rots silently from the inside out. All genuine talent slowly suffocates under their reign, leaving behind a hollow shell of yes men, a kingdom of obedient shadows. Yet the board applauds the skyrocketing numbers. They celebrate the ruthless efficiency of the parasite, completely blind to the decaying foundation beneath their feet, cheering for the collapse. The true tragedy of the corporate machine. They do not reward the builders. They crown the parasites. To control a massive organization, brute force is terribly inefficient. The true apex predator relies on a far more elegant weapon: psychological warfare. Welcome to the art of triangulation. They do not fight their enemies directly. They quietly manipulate their enemies into destroying each other. A flawless strategy. It begins with a simple, carefully planted whisper. A fabricated secret shared in strict confidence, designed specifically to breed deep-seated paranoia, infecting the workplace. They tell the marketing director that sales is plotting against them. They tell the sales team that marketing is hoarding the budget, creating a fictional war. Suddenly, the labyrinth becomes a paranoid battlefield. Colleagues who once trusted each other now stare across their desks with burning suspicion, seeing only enemies. The psychopath watches the chaos unfold from above. They remain completely detached and calm, pulling the invisible strings of the marionettes below. A grand puppeteer. By keeping everyone utterly divided and isolated, they ensure that no one will ever unite to challenge their absolute authority. A classic divide and conquer. They position themselves as the sole arbiter of truth. Both warring factions come crawling to the predator, begging for their protection and favor, surrendering all power. Information is heavily compartmentalized and weaponized. They operate like a shadow intelligence agency, controlling exactly what each person is allowed to see, distorting reality entirely. When the tension inevitably reaches a boiling point, the predator steps in as the reluctant savior, gracefully resolving the very crisis they secretly engineered, securing absolute loyalty. The exhausted prey never realizes the deception. They thank the monster for ending the slaughter, completely blind to the bloody knife hidden behind their back. A tragic illusion. This is why the toxic environment never improves. The chaos is not an accidental byproduct. It is the foundational architecture of their control. A deliberate design. They thrive in the murky waters of confusion. While the normal mind seeks harmony and peace, the narcissist feeds on the adrenaline of conflict. An endless feast. The boardroom remains entirely oblivious to the massacre. They only see a decisive leader managing a difficult team, rewarding the arsonist for putting out the fire. A fatal misjudgment. They turned the entire office into a gladiator arena. The emperor simply smiles, watching the gladiators bleed. There is a dangerous misconception about the corporate predator. Society assumes they cannot understand human emotion at all. This is entirely false. They can perfectly read your complex feelings. They simply choose not to share them. A cold calculation. They are merely a complex set of data points, waiting to be properly deciphered and weaponized. An analytical game. They scan your subtle micro-expressions like a barcode, searching desperately for the hidden psychological fracture, your deepest hidden insecurity. They map the intricate landscape of your internal fears, systematically cataloging every single vulnerability for future use, building an invisible arsenal. They artificially replicate your exact passions and deep desires, projecting the absolute perfect image of a trusted ally, a flawless psychological camouflage. You unlock the heavy doors of your psychological vault, willingly handing over your most sensitive personal leverage, stepping blindly into the trap. It is immediately categorized and stored in their archive, ready to be deployed the exact moment you resist, an emotional hostage situation. The mask suddenly slips for just a fraction of a second, and they precisely strike the exposed open wound. A surgical, psychological strike. They manipulate the narrative to play the desperate victim, forcing you to willingly sacrifice yourself for their gain. A parasitical emotional drain. The person you foolishly confided in with your darkest fears is now aggressively using them to orchestrate your downfall. Absolute emotional checkmate. They do not just break the written rules of the company, they fundamentally and permanently break the human spirit, shattering the psyche entirely. They second-guess every future interaction and every warm smile, deeply traumatized by the lingering ghost of the predator, a lasting psychological scar. They walk away completely unburdened and entirely energized, actively scanning the crowded room for their next susceptible target. The hunt never truly ends. Your deepest pain was merely a convenient instruction manual. They carefully read the entire book from cover to cover, and then they burned it. Empathy is universally praised as a virtue, but in the sterile boardroom, it is a severe liability, a heavy anchor. When the company demands a massive restructuring, the empathetic leader hesitates, paralyzed by the human cost. They see the faces of the employees, the mortgages, the families, the shattered dreams, the friction of conscience. The corporate psychopath feels none of this friction. Their mind is entirely devoid of this biological hesitation, operating like a machine. Firing 10,000 loyal workers is not a tragedy. It is merely a minor correction on a massive spreadsheet, a simple keystroke. They execute the bloodbath with terrifying precision. No sleep lost, no anxious pacing, just the cold pursuit of the bottom line. Pure efficiency. The board does not see the cruelty. They only see the immediate spike in the quarterly profit margins, worshipping the green arrows. This empathy deficit is their ultimate superpower. It allows them to make the brutal choices that ordinary humans simply cannot stomach. A dark advantage. While others drown in the emotional fallout, the predator is already moving on to the next acquisition, perfectly buoyant. They view the human suffering below as abstract noise. The agonizing cries of the laid-off workforce never penetrate the thick glass of the executive suite. Complete insulation. To them, compassion is a structural flaw, a virus that slows down the relentless machinery of capitalism, an inefficiency to be eradicated. They carefully cultivate a reputation for being tough, disguising their clinical lack of feeling as a courageous willingness to make hard calls. A brilliant reframe. The organization learns to fear this absolute emotional zero. It creates an atmosphere of chilling unpredictability, where anyone can be next. Absolute control through terror. You cannot appeal to a conscience that does not exist. You cannot negotiate with a void, using the currency of human tears. A futile effort. The empathy deficit wins every single time. The machine always outpaces the beating heart, crushing it entirely. We idolize the bold visionary who takes massive risks, but we rarely ask whose chips they are pushing onto the table. A fatal oversight. To the corporate psychopath, the thrill of the gamble is intoxicating, especially when they have absolutely nothing of their own to lose. A perfect game. They bet the entire future of the company on a reckless acquisition. projecting an aura of unshakable confidence to mask the sheer insanity blinding the board. While normal leaders calculate the devastating human cost of a potential failure, the predator only calculates the personal glory of a potential win. A massive blind spot. They play roulette with the pensions and mortgages of thousands of employees, spinning the wheel without a single spike in their resting heart rate, completely detached. If the reckless gamble magically pays off and the company surges, they instantly absorb all the praise and demand exorbitant financial bonuses. The conquering hero. But when the unstable foundation inevitably cracks and the massive bet fails, they do not go down with the sinking ship they deliberately sabotaged. A swift exit. They deploy their golden parachutes and gracefully float away from the disaster, leaving the loyal workforce to drown in the freezing financial ruin. An engineered escape. The destruction they leave behind is catastrophic and completely irreversible, yet their personal bank accounts remain untouched and heavily fortified, immune to the fallout. They spin the massive failure as a bold experiment thwarted by unpredictable markets, convincing the world that they were simply ahead of their time. An arrogant delusion. Society suffers from a dangerous collective amnesia regarding their toxic behavior, eagerly offering them the helm of another massive corporate vessel, repeating the cycle. The adrenaline of the gamble requires constantly increasing the stakes to feel anything, pushing the organization closer and closer to the absolute edge. A fatal addiction. They do not fear the terrifying abyss waiting at the bottom of the cliff, because they know they will never be the ones to fall, suspended by privilege. The board of directors continues to write blank checks for these reckless gamblers, mistaking their pathological impulsivity for rare executive genius, funding the destruction. They are not visionary architects building a sustainable financial empire. They are merely arsonists, playing with matches inside a paper house. And smiling. The cruelty is never admitted as a mistake. It is meticulously reframed as a noble and necessary sacrifice. A twisted narrative. They weaponize the concept of a corporate family, demanding unconditional loyalty while offering absolutely nothing in return. A one-way street. Working 80 hours a week is no longer exploitation. It is praised as unwavering dedication to the grand vision, romanticizing the abuse. When you point out the toxic and decaying environment, they calmly assure you that the problem is solely in your mind. A psychological manipulation. Slowly, you begin to doubt your own sanity, questioning your memory of events that clearly just happened. The ultimate destabilization. Systemic failures engineered by their own reckless leadership are magically transformed into the collective failure of the exhausted workforce, deflecting all responsibility. They enforce a chilling culture of toxic positivity, where any legitimate critique is immediately branded as dangerous insubordination, silencing the truth. Even the board of directors is completely brainwashed, fed a continuous stream of fabricated metrics and optimistic projections. A shared delusion. They erase the contributions of those who left broken, rewriting the company history to feature themselves as the sole savior. A narcissistic fantasy. They isolate the most critical thinkers from the herd, painting them as negative influences who must be aggressively purged. Protecting the lie. They hold town hall meetings to express their deep concern, shedding crocodile tears while simultaneously slashing the departmental budgets. A theatrical performance. They dangle the illusion of future promotions and wealth, a carrot perpetually kept just out of reach of the starving horse, an eternal chase. An exhausted mind is far easier to successfully program. The constant burnout guarantees that no one has the energy to rebel. Systemic pacification. Eventually, the workforce surrenders to the fabricated reality, accepting the abuse as a standard condition of modern corporate existence. Complete submission. The gaslighting is so flawlessly executed and absolute. The victims actually thank the predator for tightening the chains. The perfect prison. Every parasitic feeding cycle must eventually come to an end, when the host is completely drained of all its lifeblood. The predator moves on. They do not quietly resign or politely step down. They execute a scorched earth exit strategy to cover their tracks, burning the evidence. The thriving ecosystem they inherited is now an absolute wasteland, stripped of all valuable assets and genuine talent. A desolate ruin. They secure a massive severance package on their way out, demanding to be handsomely rewarded for the destruction they engineered. The final insult. But what happens to the loyal workforce left behind? They wander through the ruins of their shattered careers, desperately looking for fragments of their former selves in the dark. Empty, hollow shells. The psychological toll extends far beyond a simple lost paycheck. Their fundamental trust in leadership has been permanently broken. A deep betrayal. They suffer from acute corporate trauma syndrome, jumping at every shadow and bracing for the next invisible knife. Chronic hypervigilance. The brilliant innovators who once built the massive company are now reduced to terrified survivors just trying to survive. Basic survival mode. The narcissist views these broken lives in the rear-view mirror, feeling absolutely nothing but a fleeting sense of arrogant victory, a cold detachment. To them, a ruined organization is not a personal failure. It is merely a stepping stone to a much larger target. A predator's resume. They walk into their next executive interview with pristine confidence, framing the ashes they left behind as a necessary restructuring. Another brilliant lie. And the new board of directors listens with rapt attention, completely enchanted by the exact same charismatic chameleon charm. The cycle restarts. Back in the labyrinth, the remaining prey try to rebuild, sweeping up the shattered glass while bleeding from unseen wounds. A tragic aftermath. They will spend years trying to wash the toxic residue away, long after the architect of their misery has successfully relocated. An enduring poison. The parasite is completely gone and entirely financially secure. The host organization is utterly dead. And the capitalist system is perfectly fine with this outcome, hungry for more. We comfort ourselves with the naive belief that these predators are anomalies, a glitch in an otherwise healthy corporate machine. A comforting delusion. But the chilling truth is much harder to digest. The system is not fundamentally broken by these ruthless individuals. It is functioning perfectly. Unregulated capitalism demands infinite growth at absolutely any cost, creating a merciless environment that naturally selects for the most predatory traits. Survival of the cruelest. If you build an arena that exclusively rewards pure aggression and zero empathy, you cannot be surprised when the gladiators turn out to be monsters. The inevitable result. We hand the immense levers of global economic power to the exact people who lack the biological capacity to care about the consequences. A systemic suicide. They are not the disease infecting the corporate body. They are simply the immune system operating exactly as the board of directors programmed it. Maximizing the profit. Until we fundamentally change how we measure actual success, we will continue to willingly sacrifice our humanity on the altar of the quarterly earnings report. An endless cycle. As long as empathy is penalized as a fatal weakness, and ruthlessness is financially compensated as visionary brilliance, the apex predator will always rule. Look closely at the towering glass skyscrapers defining our modern cities. They are not monuments to human innovation and collective progress. They are giant architectural cages. The psychopath does not hide in the dark alleys of the underworld. They sit comfortably at the absolute peak of the glass pyramid, staring down at us. They wear bespoke suits instead of prison jumpsuits, because society decided that their specific brand of violence is completely legally acceptable. Institutionalized cruelty. We are the ones who handed them the crown of power, completely mesmerized by their confident smiles and their flawless, tailored charm. Our own fatal mistake. The next time you see a charismatic leader executing a brutal mass layoff, do not ask how a monster got into the boardroom. Ask who invited them. The corporate psychopath is exactly what the modern capitalist machine demanded. A perfectly optimized, emotionless algorithm designed to extract human wealth. the ultimate creation. They are not an error in the complex corporate code. They are the master program, and we are simply the disposable data, an absolute deletion.